Hey everybody, welcome back to our kitchen. Here we are for our third recipe. We had a mango lassi to start with. We had a bruschetta, Italian bruschetta the second time. And now we're going to try something from the deep south. Miss Inez down in Mississippi, I'm sorry, she's near Mississippi, but it's Memphis, Tennessee. She knows what I'm talking about when I talk about good homemade biscuits. And so this recipe comes from North Carolina. My great-great-grandmother has been handed down to us, and I'm going to share with you our secret. Now, there are some healthy things and some unhealthy things. Biscuits started with fat. We'll talk about that later on, the different kinds. But the flour is what we're going to start with first, after my trusty helper here gets introduced. Brielle has offered to help me again. Actually, I drug her into this. So she will be helping me with some of the biscuit fixins as we get going. So, the first thing you have to have is flour. And there's different kinds of flour you can have. The healthy versions do not have aluminum in it. So if you get a self-rising flour, make sure it's a quality kind that does not have aluminum. The basic Walmart brand is probably going to have aluminum in it. Like a good King's Arthur brand will not have the aluminum in it. So just check that out. We don't use that. We make our own self-rising flour. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be mixing some things into that, and you'll see that as we go. So first off is our flour. We're going to start with 2 cups of flour. 1, 2. Hey, we got somebody on campus that knows how to bake. Mrs. Johnson can bake a mean vegan carrot cake. So hey, we need to pray for Mrs. Johnson. She's been in surgery. Let's lift her up each time in your family, as you're having your family worships and your individual worships. Remember her in prayer. But I got to put this lid on this flour right now. Set off to the side. And now we're ready for the next thing that we're going to do. Brielle, why don't you put some salt in there? We're going to add a little salt. We're going to put 1 teaspoon of salt into this. Sprinkle it around good. Remember, you wouldn't need salt if you're using self-rising flour. The next thing, let's see here. The next thing we're going to do, let's put the lid on everything. Make sure the lid is on. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is use a leavening agent. The leavening agent we're going to use next is called baking powder. This baking powder is a special kind that does not have aluminum in it. This is Argo brand. You can look it up. Just look in the back. Make sure it doesn't have aluminum sulfate in it if you want to stay away from that. So, Brielle, you're going to put in... Oh, I got to tell you how much. 3 teaspoons is what's going in this one. 3 teaspoons of baking powder. You want to level it off at the top. Sprinkle it around or drop it in a big clog. My giggly daughter. One more time. Make sure the lid is on it. When you're done. There we go. So our leavening agents are in now. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to whisk it together. What this does, you can use a sifter too, but what this does is it basically doesn't allow the stuff to stay in the flour. It spreads it around within the flour so it's not a clump. A clump of baking powder does not taste good. There's other types of leavening you can use. You can use, one of the kinds we use is chia flour. Chia flour is a natural type of leavener. We've used it in biscuits before, and we like chia. Chia! After you get if you use chia works. I've never tried just chia, but I have substituted 1/3, 2/3, with the third being the chia, just the same amount. It's a chia, ground chia. So now we're going up to the next important part. Once this is all mixed together, it's time for the fat. There's different kinds of fats. What we're going to use here is coconut. And the coconut oil, we have to melt first. It's been melting on there, so we're ready to pour it in. And so the types of fats that are normally in biscuits, the first one, which I wouldn't recommend at all because it's just not good for you and it's against biblical principles, is the use of lard. That is traditional southern stuff, but I don't use that. The other one, not much better, but at least no animal product, is Crisco. That's what is used by a lot of different people. We started using coconut oil. We felt a lot better eating it. You can use butter. You can use margarine. You can use a lot of things to have to work it in. So this is one of them that we're going to be doing. And we don't need it anymore. So the next thing, is putting the fat in. So we have the melted stuff in here now, and you've got to take a fork. You take the fork, and she's going to work this into the flour. By the way, that was a half a cup of coconut. Once it's mixed in, you're going to take it, you're going to work that flour in, mash it in there. Oh, you got to work it all in there. You got to work it in like this. All the flour has to be worked in. If you don't, you'll have just a lot of fat. But you want bread and fat. Okay, what you've got is this right here. You just kind of worked it in until it's going to stay clumpy. There's not much you can do about that. If you're using Crisco, it goes in a lot easier. But if you're using the coconut oil, you're not going to get it perfectly smooth because it keeps clumping up because it's really wet. But you have that in there, and that's going to bring us to the next part. And the next part is our milk situation. The milk situation is roughly a half a cup, but you have to play with it a little bit. I never measure the milk, I just kind of dump it. So we're going to get to that point. She's going to use a spoon now, and she's going to mix it up. One of the tricks with biscuits, you don't want to handle the biscuits too much once you start laying it out. So you've got to get it mixed up real good with the spoon. Otherwise, you'll start working the gluten around, and we don't want to do that. It's in the... There we go. All right, so we're going to add a little bit at a time. Mix it all in there good. You want kind of a light dough. It's going to be a little, I'd say a little drier than bread dough would be. And because if you use buttermilk's normally what's used in biscuits, and you can use that. It wouldn't be vegan, but the buttermilk is a good option. You have to put a little bit more in there because it's not as liquidy. There's more solids in that. All right, let's see what we got here. That's pretty good. All right, so we're done with this thing. Let's get this stuff out of the way. We're ready to start with the. Laying it out. So we need the flour. Who stole the flour? Thank you, my trusty servant. All right, we're going to lay a little bit out here. And the object now is to spread this out. And you can use Pam spray if you want, if you have something that works well for that. If not, flour works great. All right, dump it out. Let's spread it out. And we'll walk you through what's happening. Okay, she's going to want to get a little bit of flour on her hands. Now let's try to get it into a ball, get all the components together. Make a little ball. Now mash that just a little bit. Keep going. Okay, now fold it in half. This is the trick, because if you're not folding it in half, it may not come apart real easy. So if you want those biscuits to pull apart, go ahead, fold it in half. You fold it in half before you cook it. All right, go ahead now, let's work this thing out. Now as you work this thing out, you don't want to knead the bread. You just want to spread it out to the thickness of a biscuit that you want. And remember, they will rise. So we want to kind of get the parts out. All right, let's start cutting these things. I think you're going to be able to get between 10 and 12 biscuits out of that. Now what she's got right here, this is a rather thin biscuit. You can cut them thicker if you want. You can get those big cat head biscuits that are good and thick, but you got to have a lot of bread in that. The first cuttings are always the best, so you want to plan your cuts so that you don't have to mix it a whole lot more. These are going to be a little bit thinner biscuit. I like them thin and crispy. Okay, let's redo it again. The second times are a little bit tougher, but they still are good. And there's different ways that you can utilize old biscuits. We'll talk about that later. But always you want to fold it in half because that's going to give you the ability to pull it apart. Go ahead. Really easy. Now lay it back out again. Use your fingers more. so you can feel it working out there. Pull these corners around. All right, let's knock a few of them out of there. Uh-oh, you didn't cut properly. Notice you only got one out of this. We got to do it again. Start it again. Now, when you get this far into it, don't worry about folding it unless you just really want to. You can do whatever you want to do. All right, there's our 10th biscuit. Now we're going to do this last stuff here. Show you what, as a kid, what we used to do. Is to take them and do stuff like this. We knew this because as soon as they got done, my mom would let us eat them out of the pan. And that was the best part. And we'd take them and make designs out of them, make little balls out of them like that. But you want to make sure as you do your biscuits that you put them close together. The sides of them help them to rise. And if you put them apart, they just don't quite rise the same way. So now you should be popping them in the oven. The oven should be set at 450 degrees. You're going to leave them in between 10 to 12 minutes, maybe 8, depending on what type of flour and what type of milk you may have used. It takes a little bit longer for the almond milk to work. So we'll put it in the oven here. We'll come back and check on it in about 10 minutes.
Culpepper Cucina, Part 2.
Now comes the best part. We got the biscuits out. They were in there. It took 12 minutes for these vegan ones to cook. It might have been 13. I don't know. But there's different ways you can do it. Here you can see, look at this. As it opens up, the steam. See the steam coming off of that? And that's kind of what you got there. The traditional way to eat these is to make a good brown gravy or a good white gravy. We used to have egg gravy when I was growing up as a kid. Scramble an egg in there. Then you add milk and then a flour and oil roux. And it thickens it up. And then you put that over your biscuits with a little salt. Other people like to put some kind of a fake meat. Those are good in there too. No real sausage. Not good for you. But anyways, what we have here, we have some options for you. This is a jelly, this is a jelly, this is a syrup, different ways. In the South, it was Karo syrup, which is corn syrup. This is a good maple syrup, straight from Vermont. Who would we get this from?
The Deacles.
The Deacles. So yes, thank you, Emily and Summer, for the thoughtful maple syrup from Vermont. This one here, just plain butter. We suggest Earth Balance. My daughters love this, especially my oldest. And in the middle here, we're going to show you one of the best ways to do it. This is it's organic, but it's not a local honey. We have a local honey. Local honey better for your allergies. And so, look at that lovely go on there. Biscuits are wonderful to have these kind of things. Jellies, my dad used to put fresh figs on them. You can see the different kinds of jellies here. This is a actual good jelly. We got this from Mrs. Ohm. This is a Shady Maple Special apple butter. Or it's just apple jelly. But anyways. So, which one would you like to try?
This one.
Take the jelly. That's a good choice. Good choice. I think I'm going to go for the Deacle Vermont maple syrup. What?
Hey!
What? Oh, man. Oh, that's how it works when you start making biscuits. They fly right off the plate. So, don't be afraid to try it. Become a Southerner for a short while, and your taste buds will love you for it. Your belly may not, but your taste buds will. So, remember, we're planning for next year. Seniors, what do we say? Hashtag graduation. And we will see you in the future. Au revoir.
The end.